Hungary. Land of endless plains. Land of historic thermal baths. Land of villages and traditions. A medieval castle watches over hills covered in vineyards. The Danube flows between bridges and historic palaces. Wild horses gallop freely across the grasslands. Welcome to Hungary. Welcome to the homeland of the European steppes. Known for its thermal heritage, this is a land where east meets west, where the countryside stretches beyond the horizon, and where the light paints fiery sunsets and misty dawns. But let's start from the beginning. Hungary sits in the heart of Central Europe, completely landlocked. It is one of the most inland countries on the continent. And yet, it makes up for this distance from the ocean with Lake Balaton, which is the largest lake in Central Europe, and not by chance called the Hungarian Sea. The Danube River cuts through the country from north to south, separating the gentle western hills from the eastern flatlands, creating two regions that are geographically and culturally distinct. Almost the entire Hungarian territory, in fact, lies within the Great Pannonian Plain. A flat expanse that for centuries has favored livestock farming, extensive agriculture, and a rural lifestyle, very different from the Alpine or Mediterranean one. This very geographic feature has shaped human settlements in a unique way. Many Hungarian villages do not develop in a compact manner, but rather as scattered settlements. This urban pattern comes directly from the agricultural management of the land, where the vast distances of the plain require that farms be close to the cultivated fields, rather than clustered into a single residential core. And still today, these villages preserve forms of traditional rural life, having remained practically unchanged throughout the 20th century, especially along the eastern border. But this land also hides an extraordinary underground treasure. Hungary possesses, in fact, one of the largest concentrations of natural thermal waters in the world. A geological blessing that has deeply influenced social life, from the Roman and Ottoman baths to the modern wellness centers of the capital. This hot water, rising from the earth, has shaped not only the landscape, but also the way of life of an entire people. And like these thermal waters, the Hungarian language also emerges as a fascinating anomaly in the European panorama. Hungarian or Magyar does not belong to the Indo-European languages, but to the Ugro-Finnic group, related only to Finnish and Estonian. It is therefore one of the most difficult languages in Europe, and it is a unique and isolated tongue that tells of an incredibly strong cultural identity. This identity also shows up at the table. Paprika, which is powdered pepper, is the national ingredient, used in goulash and in nearly every traditional dish, despite only arriving from the Americas in the 16th century. And if paprika warms the palate, the sweet wine of Tokaj warms the soul. Called Wine of Kings or King of Wines, by Louis XIV, this golden nectar was the first wine in the world, with a controlled designation of origin. A record that speaks to the long winemaking tradition of this land. Hungary, therefore, is much more than a simple nation. It is a crossroads of cultures, a place where East meets West, and where every element tells a unique and unrepeatable story. But now, let's go discover the most incredible and iconic places of this nation. Budapest. The Danube cuts the city into two distinct halves. On one side, there is Buda, hilly and aristocratic, where the castle and the fisherman's bastion dominate from above. On the other side, there is Pest, flat and lively, with its boulevards reminiscent of Vienna and Paris. This division has shaped Hungarian identity for centuries. Buda was the heart of power, Pest, the heart of commerce. Only in 1839, the two cities were united, connected by the chain bridge, which was the first permanent bridge over the river. But what strikes you about the city is its architecture. The Parliament reflects in the water with its Gothic spires. The Art Nouveau palaces instead tell the story of the golden age of the Belle Époque. Not far away, the Basilica of St. Stephen rises with its dome, standing 96 meters, or about 315 feet tall, the same height as the Parliament. Then there is Heroes Square, which tells 1,000 years of Magyar history through statues and columns. It is the symbolic heart of the nation. Another fundamental feature of the city are its thermal baths. Beneath the city, over 120 hot water springs flow, a geological legacy of ancient volcanoes. The Széchenyi is the largest, with its outdoor pools where Hungarians play chess, immersed in steam. They soak in winter, turning relaxation into a daily ritual that goes back to the Roman Empire. Lake Balaton. "77 kilometers, or about 48 miles in length, for a lake that never exceeds 12 meters, or roughly 39 feet in depth. The Balaton, in fact, is as flat as the plain that surrounds it. And this feature makes it special. Because the water heats up quickly in summer, reaching tropical sea temperatures. Hungarian families have been coming here for generations, turning the shores into a succession of beaches, vineyards, and fishing villages. To the north, volcanic hills produce white wine, while to the south, the shore stretches sandy for kilometers on end. Esztergom. Right where the Danube makes a bend stands the oldest city in Hungary. Esztergom was the first capital of the Magyar kingdom 1,000 years ago. This explains why its basilica dominates everything. In fact, it is the largest church in the country, with a dome visible from kilometers or miles away. The building also marks the border with Slovakia, literally just a few meters from the opposite bank of the river. And right from the dome, you can see the point where the river divides the two countries. Hungarians come here on pilgrimage because it is the spiritual center of the nation. Hortobágy. No trees, just grass to the horizon. This is the largest steppe in Europe, a green sea that stretches as far as the eye can see. Hundreds of thousands of migratory birds stop here. Here, Hungarian shepherds have developed unique techniques over the millennia. For example, they ride standing up on two horses at the same time, or there are herds of gray cattle with incredibly long horns, or they built counterbalanced wells to find water where it seemed impossible. The plain has shaped a nomadic way of living, made of seasonal migrations and adaptation to extreme climate. In summer, the heat cracks the earth. In winter, instead, the Siberian wind cuts through everything, with no obstacles. Pécs. "2,000 years of layering, and this city preserves the traces." There are early Christian Roman tombs underground, Turkish mosques turned into churches, and Austrian Baroque palaces. Every occupation has left a visible mark. And the cathedral represents this blend. It was founded in the year 1000, rebuilt multiple times, and today it has 4 towers that rise above the main square. But it is the underground that tells the oldest story, with the early Christian catacombs that are a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Today it is also a lively cultural center, with universities, museums, and many shops. Tokaj. The terraced hills slope down toward the rivers, and every hillside is oriented to maximize sun exposure. Among the rows of vines, small white structures stand out, with triangular roofs. And these are the traditional wine cellars called pincek. These hut-like structures, semi-buried into the hillside, dot the entire wine landscape of the area. Their particular shape is no accident. The sloping roof protects from moisture, while the stone keeps the temperature constant for the aging of wine. And it is here that Tokaj is born, a sweet and golden wine that Louis XIV called Wine of Kings, King of Wines, storing it at Versailles. Tihany. A volcanic peninsula juts out into Lake Balaton, creating one of the most recognizable panoramas of Hungary. The hills abruptly interrupt the surrounding plain, offering a privileged observation point over the lake. At the summit, the Benedictine Abbey dominates, founded in the year 1000, and built right where the volcanic rock offered natural protection. Around the abbey, the village of Tihany unfolds, with its white houses following the curves of the hill. Among the narrow alleys, artisan shops and terraces overlooking the water open up. The scent of lavender in the atmosphere are more reminiscent of a Mediterranean village than the heart of Central Europe. At the foot of the peninsula, the natural harbor offers perfect shelter to fishermen during the storms that sweep across the lake. Visegrád. The Danube narrows between the mountains, creating a mandatory passage. Once upon a time, whoever controlled this point controlled the river trade of Central Europe. The Romans fortified it first, then the Hungarians arrived in the 13th century. The castle of Visegrád rises on a rocky spur, 300 meters, or about 985 feet above the river, in a perfect position to spot any movement. The walls follow the natural contours of the rock, adapting to the topography instead of fighting it. In the 14th century, it also became a royal residence with fountains and gardens. Lake Hévíz. $47,000 square meters, or roughly 506,000 square feet of thermal water that never freezes. Even at minus 20 degrees Celsius, or minus 4 Fahrenheit, the lake steams in the winter fog, maintaining 30 degrees Celsius, or 86 Fahrenheit, at the surface. An underground spring pumps 82 million liters, or about 21.7 million gallons per day, completely renewing the water every 72 hours. This continuous exchange has created a unique ecosystem. For example, we find tropical water lilies that grow here naturally and are unique in Europe. Hollókő. "77 white houses with red tile roofs. All identical. This is a traditional Hungarian village where time has stood still since the 18th century. After a fire in 1914, the inhabitants rebuilt everything exactly as it was before, following the traditional Palace architecture. The cobblestone streets climb toward the castle ruins on the hill. The narrow and long houses instead allowed for easy division of properties among heirs, while the porches protected from the continental climate. UNESCO protects this village as an intact example of Hungarian rural life. Szeged. The Tisza River flooded in 1879, nearly wiping out this city entirely. And this catastrophe redesigned Szeged from scratch. The new boulevards followed a modern urban plan, with Art Nouveau buildings replacing the old medieval houses. The synagogue was born precisely during this period of rebirth, and it is the second largest in Hungary. It has a blue dome with decorations that blend Art Nouveau and traditional Jewish motifs. Another important symbol of the city is the votive cathedral. It was also built after the flood as a symbol of gratitude for the reconstruction. Its twin towers, standing 91 meters, or about 299 feet tall, dominate Dom Square, the heart of the new city. Margaret Island. Two and a half kilometers, or about 1.5 miles of green, in the middle of the Danube. The island splits the river right in the heart of Budapest, but inside it feels like being kilometers away from the city. No cars, just tree-lined paths and lawns where Budapestians come to jog or lie in the sun. The elongated shape comes from river erosion, which isolated the sandbar centuries ago. Dominican monks built a convent here, and the Gothic ruins still peek out among the trees. Boldogkő Castle. A castle seems to grow from the rock itself. Part of the name means happy stone, and it comes from the volcanic rock spur on which the fortress stands. The walls follow exactly the profile of the summit, adapting to the topography. The feudal lords built it in the 13th century to control the valley below, where the trade route toward Poland runs. The towers served as observation posts, with a 360-degree view. The village stretches at the foot of the hill, with houses that historically provided services and supplies to the garrison. Szentendre. Seven kilometers, or about 4 miles from Budapest, the Danube slows down, forming a quiet bend. The Serbian Orthodox flee here in the 16th century, escaping the Turkish invasion of the Balkans. They bring with them icons, traditions, and the architecture of their churches. And so this place becomes a concentration of Balkan culture on Hungarian soil. The Orthodox domes rise among colorful houses in a Mediterranean style, completely different from typical Hungarian architecture. Shops also fill the narrow alleys that climb from the riverbank. Gödöllő Palace. Elizabeth of Austria hated Vienna. It was too formal, too rigid. So she convinced Emperor Franz Joseph to gift her this Baroque palace. 30 kilometers, or about 19 miles from the Hungarian capital. And this royal palace became her personal refuge. A place where she could ride freely and escape court etiquette. The 127 rooms unfold around a private theater, where performances were organized for a select few. The gardens extend for 29 hectares, or about 72 acres, designed for solitary walks among tree-lined paths. Bokod. The houses here float on the water, literally. This village has an artificial lake created to cool a power plant in the 1960s. The fishermen built wooden cabins on stilts to store their catch. They were temporary structures that became permanent. Today, about 50 cottages reflect in the water, connected to the shore by narrow walkways. The lake never freezes completely, thanks to the warm water discharged from the plant, allowing fishing even in winter. Debrecen. The second largest city in Hungary by population, but with unique religious identity. In the 16th century, Debrecen embraces Protestantism, a branch of Christianity that opposes the Catholic Church, completely rejecting Catholicism. This religious choice shapes everything. We find sober architecture, a university founded to train pastors, and traditions that value work and study. The Great Reformed Church dominates the central square, a yellow neoclassical building that can hold 5,000 people. Here in 1848, Hungarian independence from Austria was proclaimed, turning the city into the temporary capital of the revolution. And the city still preserves today this spirit of independence and moral rigor. Szendrő and Trizs. Two villages in Borsod County, at the gates of the Bodva Valley. Szendrő has a heavy history, mentioned in documents since 1312, with the ruins of a castle that served as a border fortress during the Turkish occupation, and a reformed church with a stone bell tower. Trizs is smaller, with about 200 inhabitants. It has traditional houses made of stone and mud, and columned porches. Around it, we find wooded hills and silent meadows. Keste. The western tip of Lake Balaton has a different character. Here, the water is slightly deeper than on the southern shores and clearer, thanks also to the thermal springs that feed the area. The town developed around the Festetics Palace, which is a Baroque residence of an aristocratic family that governed the area for centuries. The palace organized literary competitions that attracted intellectuals from all over Europe in the 19th century. The lakefront comes alive in summer, with tourists who prefer this shore to the crowded beaches on the opposite side. Gödöllő. Three rivers converge, creating a natural strategic junction. The Danube, the Raba, and the Rabka meet in this position that has attracted settlements since the time of the Celts. The Baroque Old Town rises on an island formed by the rivers in a naturally protected position that has saved the city from many invasions. The basilica holds a reliquary bust of Saint Ladislaus, who was a Hungarian king and a pilgrimage destination. Walking through the city, the atmosphere feels more Austrian than Hungarian, among decorated facades and lively squares. Today it is also an automotive industrial hub with modern factories that coexist alongside medieval churches. Magyar Mountain Lake. An irregular crater filled with turquoise water. The name means sea eye and it is actually an old millstone quarry abandoned in 1907 that filled with rainwater over the decades. You reach it with a hike of about 15 minutes, along an uphill trail through the woods. What strikes you, though, are the volcanic rock walls that drop vertically for dozens of meters, or over 100 feet, down to the still water at the bottom. Miskolc. This is the quintessential Hungarian industrial city. The steel mills have forged rails and machinery thanks to the iron mines born in the surrounding Bükk Mountains. It is also home to one of the most important technical universities in the country, with about 15,000 students. But the city has more to offer. "12 kilometers, or about 7.5 miles from the center, climbing through beech forests, you reach Lillefjord. It is a resort built at the end of the 19th century as a summer residence for the government. A neo-Renaissance palace now turned into a hotel that overlooks Lake Hungary. Szeged. A former island of Lake Balaton, which became a hill when the water receded in Roman times. The castle dominates from the top, 200 meters, or about 656 feet above the lake. Built in the 13th century to spot invasions from the west, it held out until the Austrians demolished it in 1716 to prevent Hungarian rebels from using it. Today, the perimeter walls and a tower remain, and that is enough to understand how impregnable it was. The village climbs up the slopes planted with vineyards, with white houses that follow the curves of the terrain. Eger. A woman here organized the military defense against 40,000 Turks. We are in 1552, and this city held out for 38 days, repelling every assault. This battle has become a national legend, a symbol of Hungarian resistance. The castle preserves the walls that withstood the siege, still walkable today. But this city is not just fortifications and battles. At the foot of the castle, the minaret church dominates the main square, with twin towers and Baroque interiors covered in golden frescoes. Sopron. Eight referendums, and 8 times the city voted to remain Hungarian instead of joining Austria. This loyalty earned it the nickname, the Loyal City. The border position, however, has blended Central European architecture and Hungarian traditions. The fire tower dominates the main square. Made of stone and standing about 60 meters, or roughly 197 feet tall. Climbing to the top, you can see the Austrian Alps to the west and Lake Furto to the east. Pannonhalma. At 96 meters, or about 315 feet above the plain, an isolated hill could have become a natural fortress. The Benedictines understood this in 996, building their abbey here. The commanding position allowed them to control the trade routes that crossed medieval Hungary. The library holds 360,000 volumes, accumulated over roughly 1,000 years of uninterrupted collection. The wooden shelves rise to the frescoed ceiling, a testament to the times when monasteries were the only places where knowledge was preserved. Wrapping up this visual journey through Hungary, we have moved from the charm of its historic cities and medieval castles to the endless plains and thermal baths, exploring together not just places, but also curiosities that make every corner of this land unique. We hope the images and stories told have enriched your knowledge and sparked the desire to personally explore the extraordinary beauty of this fascinating country.